Hello, my homeowners and homeowners to be. Today, I am focusing on the closing costs and the down payment. June is National Homeownership Month, and we are approaching June. And it's very important, to be empowered in your purchase process. And so, I think it's important to understand all the numbers that are involved, or at least to some degree. So, I'm going to just give you some information. I do a monthly mortgage seminar every first Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. If you are interested, go to my website, www.rtsmortgagefinancial.com, and click on the free mortgage seminar. From credit to closing, all you need to position yourself for the purchase. All right. So today we are talking about the closing costs and the down payment and just a few other things as well, and just kind of understanding these things when it comes to purchasing a property. There's quite a few individuals that believe that it's just the down payment. All right, let's say it's a purchase price of 500,000. The down payment, that is 5%, which is going to be 25,000. You think that's all I need? Nope, that's not all you need. You also need the closing cost as well. I'm going to start by explaining the breakdown of how to calculate the down payment. All right, because once you're above 500,000, it is calculated with a sliding scale. So it's really important to understand that, so that you understand, exactly how much the down payment portion is going to be. So properties anywhere from 500,000 and below, it's straightforward. It is 5%. So as I said, property purchase price of 500,000, 5% of that is going to be 25,000 for your down payment. Let's say we're going above the 500,000 mark though. So anything above the 500,000 mark to 1.5% is calculated by a sliding scale. So the additional amount would be 10%. All right, so let me break that down. Let's say the purchase price is 600,000. Okay, so 500,000, that portion would be calculated by 5%. All right, so 5% of that 500,000, as we mentioned before, is 25,000. We're going to park that 25,000. Remember, the purchase price is actually 600,000 for this scenario. So the additional 100,000 that adds up to the 600,000, that portion is going to be calculated by 10%. All right. If it's an additional 200,000 for a $700,000 purchase, it will be calculated by 10%. So keep that in mind. Anything above the 500,000 amount is going to be calculated by 10%. For this scenario, we're using a purchase price of 600,000. So with 600,000, we've parked that 500,000 portion for the 5% of 25,000 down. The 100,000 portion, now we're going to calculate that by 10%. How much is that? That's going to be 10,000. All right. So now we've already parked that 25,000. All right. We're going to add that 10,000 for the additional 100,000 portion that adds up to 600,000. Your down payment now is 35,000. All right. So it's very important for you to understand that part, so you know exactly what your down payment is going to be. So let's take a look, of course, at the closing cost and the down payment. So we just worked out, how much a $600,000 purchase price would be. It's at 35,000. So 35,000 is just the down payment portion of it. This does not include your additional closing cost. All right. So additional closing costs can be the land transfer tax. All right. And this you have to calculate. Of course, it depends on the purchase price. And I always break this down for clients for sure. I try my very best to break down the numbers as close as possible, so that by the time you make it to the lawyer, you're not finding this information out at the end of the process. You're finding it out at the beginning. So when you get to the lawyer's office and the lawyer tells you exactly how much you need to come up with for closing and the down payment, you're not scrambling thinking, where did this come from? I didn't know that that these costs were involved. Now, it is the lawyer's responsibility to give you those final numbers, but myself, as your mortgage broker, I'm going to do my best to provide you with that information before you get to that part. All right. And it's not going to be precise on point, but it's as close as possible, not too far off from what the final numbers would be. So as I mentioned, you're going to have the land transfer tax. All right, that's going to be a part of your closing costs. If you're a first-time home buyer, you have the rebate. That's going to offset that a bit. And of course, the lawyer will definitely go over that with you, so that you know exactly what that rebate will look like. Okay. You also have, of course, the insurance premium. So if you are putting down less than 20% on the purchase price, you have to understand that there's an insurance premium, okay? That insurance premium highly depends on how much below the 20% you're putting down, but you don't have to worry about paying that lump sum amount of the insurance premium. It actually gets calculated or added into the mortgage, all right? But you do have to pay the tax on that. That would be 8% tax on that insurance premium. So that will have to be added to your closing costs. So we have land transfer tax, we have we have the insurance premium. That's the tax portion on the insurance premium. Another part of the closing costs can potentially be the tax, the property tax. Now, if the individuals that you're purchasing the property from, the sellers, if they have paid their property tax out for the rest of the year, let's say, they didn't think they were going to sell, and in February they listed the property, but January they paid the property tax for the whole year. All right. In that scenario, you're moving in, let's say April. They've already paid it out for the year. Guess what? They're no longer going to be living there from April to December, but they've paid it out for the year. You will have to reimburse them, all right, on closing. So that is where the other portion of the closing cost can potentially be, because you will have to make sure that you're paying them from April, or giving back those funds from April to January, because you're now to December, because you're now taking over the property. The beauty of that is that if you do that, you don't have to worry about paying the property tax until the following year, because you've paid it out for the remainder of the year based on that reimbursement at closing. Now, if the individuals that you're buying the property from, if they pay their property tax every month, then you don't have to worry about having to pay them back. You just move into the property and you continue with that payment cycle, or however that payment cycle is from there. The bottom line is, as long as they haven't paid it out for the year and you're moving in before the end of the year, you don't have to worry about that portion of the closing costs. Okay, then you have to remember the legal cost as well. Depending on the lawyer that you're using, legal costs can be anywhere from $2,500, could be a little bit higher as well. It highly depends, all right, on the lawyer that you're using, but you always want to make sure that you touch base with the lawyer and understand what are the costs involved with the legal cost by itself. So we have the down payment, all right. We have the land transfer tax, we have the insurance premium, we have the legal costs, and we potentially have a property tax portion that has to be paid. These are the components that, of course, go into the final numbers when it comes to the closing cost, all right, the total cost of borrowing. And of course, there's also the broker fee as well. All right. On some files, there is a broker fee. Okay. And so you have to keep that in mind as well. Could be anywhere from 0.5 to 1%. And so these are the additional costs when it comes to your closing. So I always say that you want to buffer up a little bit. So when I give my clients their final numbers with regards to the closing costs, or the estimated final numbers, I buffer it up just a little bit, right? If the final number is, let's say, 30,000 altogether, I'm going to say 40,000, all right, to make sure that you have a little bit of a cushion just in case. You don't want to be in a situation where you're at the lawyer's office scrambling and scraping and thinking, oh my goodness, I didn't know that all these other additional costs were involved. One of the costs that actually catches people off guard is that property tax, all right? So always make sure that you are aware that there's a possibility that, depending on those sellers, how they pay their property tax, that might be a little bit extra that you may have to make sure that you have on top of the other closing costs, to make sure that you have that additional amount for the final numbers. If you have any questions, let me know. But as I said, remember, please sign up for that monthly mortgage seminar. It is a wealth of information that you'll need, not just if you're not looking to purchase right away, it's okay. But it's about positioning yourself so that when you are ready, you know exactly, what you need to put into place from now, right? So I can't tell you how many times I have clients that say, I wish I knew this 6 months ago. So, sign up, get the information so you can start to position yourself so that when you're ready, you are really ready. Thanks again. Once again, you can contact me at KJ at RTS Mortgage Financial, or 647-580-7421. Visit me online as well. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out.